Hello everyone, I'm Extra Cheesy 87 and this is Let's Play Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Part 27. In the previous video we got a little tilted, or I got a little tilted. Well, there were two instances of tilt. One I still maintain was correct. I am righteous in my tilt. The other, all on me. My fault, not the game's fault, and I was being unfair. But basically finished up investigating, or not trying, cross-examining, that's the word I'm looking for. Cross-examining Jake Marshall. And then right when we were about to lose the case, Emma comes in and she's got some information for everyone. I was kind of in a shock. I mean, finding out the SL9 incident referred to the Joe Darke killings. Now that she mentions it, names of both Sky sisters were in that file. But that's when I figured it out. I mean, what Officer Marshall was trying to do that day. So, I knew his fingerprint had nothing to do with the crime. That left only one thing. The other handprint. You mean the traces of blood found on Detective Gumshoe's locker? But no fingerprints were found on it, right? No, but I figured if I scanned it scientifically, I'd be sure to find a clue. So, I ran over there and looked at it again. Did you find something? No. Huh? Sorry, I guess I'm not much of a scientific investigator after all. Is that all? Please don't be mad. I'm just a high school student. I'm just an attorney. But Mr. Wright, those traces of blood are the only clue we have. We can find something wrong with them? Please, Mr. Wright, you're a professional, are we? We don't actually get paid for our work, so by definition, we're not a professional. If anyone can save Lana, it's you. Me? Oh boy. Time's up. Now then, Mr. Wright, with regard to the incident at the police department, does any reasonable doubt remain? Yeah, a lot of reasonable doubt. I'm not even saying that it's a joke. There's tons of reasonable doubt. There's all kinds of reasonable doubt. We got boxes of reasonable doubt. It appears the defense is troubled by the other blood mark. Looking at the floor plans, a handprint was discovered around here. Is there a problem with this? Mr. Wright, I'm sorry I can't be of more use, but still, if you can't find anything wrong with that blood mark, Lana will be... Please answer my question, Mr. Wright. I'm ready to get to the killing. I mean, we don't have all day. Yes, Your Honor. If ever I've needed to concentrate, it's now. What could be wrong with the handprint on Detective Gumshoe's locker? Could there be something I'm missing? I object! There's no problem, actually. This handprint left at the crime scene clearly shows a contradiction. I mean, it's a right handprint. Now, what about it being a right handprint is important? The only thing that seems clear... Oh! Let me see. Does it say what type of glove this is? I mean, that's a left-handed glove, but that could just be, you know, the art. That doesn't. If it doesn't say, like, specify what type of glove it is, then maybe that's not important. Granted, this is also an old glove, so maybe that's not important at all. You've been staring pretty intently at those floor plans. Tell me, is there a problem with them? Yes, this is strange. Take a good look at these floor plans. Something is missing. Missing? You mean something hasn't been drawn on there? The blue badger. I don't know. Yes, something that when drawn will completely change the meaning of the blood mark. Let us pray the defense isn't simply trying to buy time. Very well, Mr. Wright. All the evidence here. Also, since I've become awful at the game, let's save. Oh, having to save mid-trial, it feels so cowardly. There's gotta be something I can use. The question is, which item can prove... My gut says go with this. What about that piece of plywood? The Blue Badger? Mascot of the police force? Defender of truth? Guardian of proof? Explain yourself, Mr. Wright. Please look at the floor plans of the crime scene. The Blue Badger is not here. So? Fools. So, watch what happens when we put him in. This is where he was dancing at the time of the crime. Well, what? Ah! That's right. So long as the Blue Badger is dancing here, it would be impossible to place a handprint at the spot in the locker, unless you, like, were to just kind of scoot your arm in there, then you could probably do it, but shut up! So, that means, just what exactly does that mean? It means it can't be done! What are you saying? Blood traces were undeniably found in the locker! Don't look at me, I didn't put it there. So, it was there beforehand, and the Badger was put to block it from view, I guess. Actually, can you see the video again? Because I remember trying to look to see if the bloodstain was there. But yeah, I guess you can't actually see. Because it's on the right side. Yeah, because I do remember looking at one point to see if you could see the bloodstain. But I'm trying to remember. Meekins was told... No, Meekins put the Blue Badger there of his own accord, right? He wasn't told to do that? Emma, on that afternoon... So it could... I don't know if it's supposed to be just an accident or if it was intentionally done. I mean, its placement seems pretty intentional on that afternoon. Officer Meekins was the one who brought the Blue Badger to the evidence room, right? After he put it down, it would have been impossible to leave a handprint on that locker. So that must mean this blood mark was left there before the Blue Badger was brought in? And he just didn't notice? Well, I guess it is Meekins, so... Just one moment, I will not allow such far-fetched balderdash into my courtroom. Oh boy, I've been waiting to use that word all day. It's on my word calendar, you see. It may sound far-fetched, Your Honor, but it's the only possible explanation. On February 21st, in the police department's evidence room, the blood was spilled not once but twice. But how? One time was captured on this tape, taken by the security camera. Officer Meekins cut his hand from which a trivial amount of blood fell. The problem is, the other time. So we can assume that maybe Goodman was actually killed here? And then his body was placed in the trunk afterwards to frame Lana? Maybe? I don't know. I do kind of have to wonder, like, whether or not Star is lying? I feel like she's probably not lying, she's just misunderstanding, like maybe she misinterpreted something as Lana stabbing? I don't know. And I mean, there's also... I mean, you kind of have to assume she's not guilty. Because I'm like, they could maybe go with it's like, yeah, maybe Lana did it, but it was justified because Goodman had, like, you know, done some shady shit. But I assume they're going to want to end this with a not guilty thing. I don't know. Someone bled prior to the struggle shown in this tape. That's one thing I will say about this case. Even though, like, I feel like a couple of the trial prompts have been a little, like, there's been, like, I think there's been two. There was one in the previous day one of the trial that I remember thinking was a little whack, and then the one with the fingerprints at the start. Everything, but, like, the actual, like, the case itself and everything that's going on is, like, really interesting and intriguing, and I kind of like the overall mystery it's created. It had to have been Detective Goodman when he was really murdered. That's ridiculous. I refuse to accept your absurd claim. I refuse to accept your absurd rejection of my absurd claim. The murder portrayed in the security tape has been proven to be a fake. However, that does not explain the blood mark found in the locker. So then, assuming this murder you purport really happened, when did it take place? I demand you show evidence that proves when it occurred. When did the first incident occur? To summarize, the defense claims that prior to Officer Meekins being cut by Jake Marshall, who was posing as Detective Goodman, another incident took place in that evidence room. That's right, the blood mark on the locker proves this. Very well. Then tell us, When did this first incident occur? As Mr. Edgeworth said, proof must be presented. Well, we only have a few pieces of evidence with timestamps on them. My first initial thing I think of is the ID card with the 777 guy. So let's glance at everything. Anything with a timestamp. I'm pretty sure it's got to be the ID report card. I'm going to say this, and then we'll work from here. If the crime took place inside the evidence room, then the killer would have had to enter. And in order to do so, an ID card would have been required. An ID card? Oh, the ID card record. Officer Meekins brought the Blue Badger panel into the evidence room. And let's see here. 550, 450. Shut up. If the crime took place before that time, then it would be... Miley, why didn't you notice the blood stain, buddy? 4:44 p.m. Ah! Miles Edgeworth? Just what have you done? Well, actually, I was referring to the guy before him, but, I never would have figured you had the nerve, boy. Drop the act, witness. It doesn't take a lot of thought to figure out it couldn't have been me. Nope, I ain't getting it. I'm afraid I don't understand either. Clear from the luminol test that blood was there. However, when the second crime took place, both Officer Meekins and Officer Marshall failed to notice the blood. That means the blood from the first crime was wiped away by the real murderer. I would have had just 10 minutes to murder the victim, carry his body away, and clean up the blood. Unfortunately, that's physically impossible. That would mean... But I mean, if you went through the trouble of wiping away all the blood, why would you leave the handprint? Crime must have taken place before Mr. Edgeworth entered the evidence room. Unless maybe the handprint was supposed to be there to implicate Edgeworth? But, I mean, they kind of dismissed that whole line of reasoning that he could be the killer very easily, so... I don't know. I mean, there's only one person. Number 777777. Talk about a lucky number. But wait, that doesn't make sense. How could Detective Goodman have entered the evidence room? Since there's no record of his car being used beforehand, he must have entered along with the real murderer. That's the only plausible explanation. He went in there with 777777. Who could have such a ridiculous number? Maybe the leader of the Department of Police. Find out whose ID number is 77777777. That's 1 7 too many. I was gonna say that because I assumed it was 7 sevens, but it's not 8 sevens. Come on, 8 sevens. That's ridiculous. At least at present. What? Explain yourself, son. The ID number belongs to someone with the rank of captain or higher. Someone who is a so-called executive officer. Oh, I wonder who it could be. We don't have the authority to inquire into such a person's identity. But that's ridiculous! Just how... I'm not finished talking, Mr. Wright. There is one situation in which we can be granted such authority. An official charge filed against an executive is accepted. An official charge? You're all alike, aren't you? With your cover-ups and your forgeries. That's how the prosecutor office operates. I take pride in my work, Officer Marshall. I would appreciate it if you would keep your slander to yourself. Slander, is it? Okay. Well, you know, technically it's not slander because I'm not saying this out loud because I ain't got a voice actor. It's written in text, therefore it's libel. Come on, man. Watch the first Spider-Man movie again, idiot. Let me ask a question. Yes? No, not to you. To her, the defendant sitting over there. Your own little executive. Lana. Don't be stupid. She's been charged with murder. Of course we've looked up her ID number. And it's not 77, you know. Don't play me for a fool, partner. That's not what I want to ask. All I want to know is one thing about that incident. The SL9 incident? Answer me this, Chief Prosecutor. That trial 2 years ago. Did you really only use legitimate evidence? Do you need the witness to repeat his question, Chief Prosecutor? I heard him fine, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, I was in charge of the prosecution at that trial. At the time, occasionally we felt the powerlessness of the law. At least, I did. Lana, I became a prosecutor in order to suppress crime with the law. But before I realized it, we were the ones being suppressed by the law. Defendant, just what are you saying? I'll ask you again, Chief Prosecutor. During that trial 2 years ago, did you really present all the evidence in court? Can you look at me, an investigator in that crime, in the eye and say that you did? Chief Prosecutor, you didn't. I don't have to, Officer Marshall. Why won't you answer him? Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved. But Lana, even if it involved forging evidence. Well, but he's dead, though, so it don't really matter that much, does it? Well, alright, I'll be going. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. No! No! Order! 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 Lana's remarks caused such a stir, the chaos and, whoa, it would have to wait until the following day. I didn't hit the button there. It just, like, went by itself. Like, I mean, it skipped that line of text instantly. Okay. Well. Seriously, this trial is actually going to be half the Let's Play. That's hilarious. So sorry, Mr. Wright. Sorry for what my sister said. Well, I mean, you know, we already kind of knew the justice system's corrupt as hell. It's not really, like, big news anymore. Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved. Remember when I said that 60 seconds ago? Gosh, good times. I didn't know. I never knew that the SL9 incident was just another name for the Joe Darke killings. Sounds like everyone's heard about these killings with me. Lana wanted Darke to convicted so badly, that's why she used me. That's why she used what happened to me. What do you mean, what happened to you? It's all there in the file. Joe Darke's last victim was Prosecutor Neil Marshall. And he murdered Officer Marshall's brother? He left behind an incriminating piece of evidence. But what did you have to do with these killings, Emma? On the night Prosecutor Neil Marshall was murdered, Joe Darke tried to kill me. What? He tried to kill you? Officer Marshall's brother, Neil, was only trying to save me. That means you... Yeah. I was a witness in the Joe Darke trial. I didn't see that one coming. I mean, the idea that he was trying to kill Emma, maybe, but, I mean, obviously she was a witness. We already knew that, but... Ever seen a real-life attorney's badge? See this? It's my attorney's badge. I've never seen a real one before. I mean, you know, just kind of lighten the mood a little bit. Happened 2 years ago. It was right about this time of the year, too. There was a terrible thunderstorm that day, unusual for the season. I was alone in my sister's office. We were planning to eat dinner together when she finished her work. Then suddenly, this terrifying man came bursting into the office. Joe Darke. It seemed like he was running from someone. He pulled out a knife and screamed at me. I didn't know what was going on. Just then, Prosecutor Marshall showed up. Jake Marshall's brother. Joe Darke tried to take me hostage, but before he could, Mr. Marshall tackled him. And then, what happened? I'll never forget it. Lightning struck and the lights went out. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning flashed outside the window, lighting up the office for an instant. What I saw then burned a permanent picture in my mind. I can still see it now. Permanent picture? What did you see in the instant that crime occurred? I mean, Darke knocked down Mr. Marshall and raised his knife. You know, Marshall was stabbed right in front of this poor girl. So I guess technically she didn't actually see the murder. I don't remember what happened after that. Apparently I passed out. When I came to, Lana was cradling me in her arms. Poor Emma, you've been through so much. I couldn't bring myself to testify about that instant. I tried, but the words just wouldn't come out. I drew a picture, but it wasn't any good. 2 years ago, you must have been 14. That's understandable. Once it was all over, I made up my mind. I decided that when I grew up, I'd become a scientific investigator. I wanted to be able to fight crime with my own testimonies, and find the evidence and make an airtight case. That way Lana would never have to forge any. Let's see. I think I'm finally starting to understand what makes Emma tick. But there's still something that bothers me about that crime. I don't remember the moment when Darke stabbed Mr. Marshall. You weren't able to testify about that? No, I was only asked about when I was attacked. That must be why why she made up the crime. Made it up? You mean provided bogus evidence? The prosecutor's office wanted that guilty verdict so badly. Lana forged the evidence and Mr. Edgeworth used it. Edgeworth? Yeah, but I'm sure he didn't know anything about it. He couldn't have known he was being given false evidence. Even so, that's when it all started. The rumors about Mr. Edgeworth, I mean. It's all my fault. If I could have just testified properly, none of this would have happened. I mean, well, actually, if the dude hadn't just murdered people, none of this would have happened. Like, you can't blame yourself for this. So it's true, even though he may not have known it, Edgeworth really was involved in falsifying evidence. After that case ended, Lana was never the same. She became cold, like she is today. She must not have been able to face up to what she did, especially not to Emma. There's something that's puzzling me, Emma. What is it? You said you were in Lana's office at the time, right? That's right. Why then would a serial killer come running in there? Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, is that I guess he was actually there to kill her? Not only that, but why was he being chased by a prosecutor? Oh, there's no mystery there. Joe Darke had been taken... Yeah, because I guess they kind of implied they knew he was guilty, right? For the other stuff, so... Taken in for questioning? You mean by the police? I mean, I was kind of thinking that... I don't know. So I guess it seems that it's less that he was someone who had the killings falsely placed on him, which is, of course, much less sinister than... Or would have been much more sinister. It seems like he actually was a serial killer, and they just couldn't quite get the evidence to guarantee the guilty verdict, so they had to kind of come up with a situation wherein they would be able to 100% get him. Of course, this happened at the police department. He tried to run away halfway through the interview and fled into my sister's office. But why did he run all the way over to your sister's office? Because the detective's office and the questioning room are right across from the elevator. Across from the elevator? But Lana was the chief prosecutor, wasn't she? No, silly. Didn't I tell you? 2 years ago, Lana was a detective. She was the best in the entire force. What? That's news to me. After the Joe Darke case, she was transferred to the prosecutor's office and made chief prosecutor. Lana used to be a detective. I'd better have another talk with her. Okay, so we got some information of mine. Seems everything is somehow related to this incident. What was it labeled again? The SL9 incident? Yeah, the name of everyone connected to this trial is listed in here. All that's left is to figure out just what role everyone plays in this case. If we search hard enough, I think we'll be able to find our answers. What exactly did or didn't Lana do? I'm not sure I want to know everything. I'd be interested to know what exactly was fabricated. I mean, I guess it doesn't really, like, you know, any evidence that's fabricated to get a verdict that maybe wouldn't initially happen is bad, but I would be interested to know the extent of what they, actually did. Trying to see if there's anything else we could present to her. Not really. Anything about this jar? This jar is pretty fragile. Looks like it's about to break apart. The jar. The jar, man. We still need the jar. Hello. Lana? Mr. Wright, it seems I keep causing you trouble. Falsifying evidence? I didn't think you were the type. Criminals don't mind playing foul. Why should we? But Lana, you're wrong. An innocent person might be found guilty. And I mean, that's the, you know, the primary function of the Justice Department is to protect the innocent, really. And that's why it's, you know, called the Justice Department. Believe me, I understand the risks. Lana, Emmett told me about you. Uh-oh. About how you were a detective 2 years ago? And how the SL9 incident was the reason for your transfer to the prosecutor's office? That's right. Can you fill me in on the details, especially about that unusual change of jobs? I suppose you have a right to know, Mr. Wright. A right to know, Mr. Wright? Cause his name is Wright and it sounds like Wright. I mean, it's basically spelled the same, but there's just like a W on there, but you don't pronounce the W. The W's just there. It's like a joke W, just for laughs. A lot of revelations were uncovered at the trial today, at least not the least of which was the fact that this case is largely connected to another one 2 years ago. Evidence from that case was stolen as well, though I expected as much. I know how obsessive Officer Marshall can be. That trial, it really wasn't fair, was it? I believed in you, Lana. I believed that no matter what happened, you'd always stick to the truth. Couldn't be helped, Emma. At that trial 2 years ago, I sold my soul. Well, all drama aside, the fact of the matter is that at 5:15 there was no murder at the police department. Tell me it's not true, Lana. What the witness, Miss Starr, said. About you stabbing Mr. Goodman with a knife. Because, I mean, I don't really know what her motive is, right? Because, I mean, like, realistically, the only thing you could think of is that she would have maybe, like, murdered him to cover up that they falsified evidence. But if that was the case, if she was so concerned about, like, having her reputation and the prosecutor's office reputation hurt by this revelation, would she have just gone up there and said it on the stand? I don't think so. So I'm pretty sure it's still, like, the Damon guy has to have been the killer, right? I would guess. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense, right? I mean, he has way more to lose by being the lead investigator on the case, and he's in, like, a very high position now because of it, probably. Lana, I don't understand. Why won't you tell us? Emma, this doesn't just involve me. I don't think I've ever seen Lana look so fazed before. It's true, I was a member of the police force 2 years ago. She was amazing. They still talk about all the cases she and Chief Gant cracked together. Chief Gant? He was the deputy chief of police back then, but he still worked the crime scenes. Damon Gant, he was everything I aspired to be. They were the best team ever. They solved crimes before the reports could even be filled. Emma really idolizes her big sister. But now you're chief prosecutor. What happened? I always planned on becoming a prosecutor. The reason I became a detective was to gain experience investigating crime scenes so you could use the experience in court, right? Gant's help in the SL9 case was crucial to its resolution. After that, he became chief of police and arranged my transfer to the prosecutor's office. Maybe I should ask more about this investigation of theirs 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was second in command of the detectives investigating Darke. Second in command? That means the investigation lead was Damon Gant, right? Yes, Deputy Chief Gant and I shared the same office and the same investigation. Same office? Okay, same office. That seems important. They even had the same office? Yeah, the fact that he repeated it, definitely important. We led a team of the best detectives on the force. Detective Goodman, whose case it was, Jake Marshall, and Angel Starr with a second R. It was the first time Marshall worked with his brother. He was quite gung-ho. Without a doubt, Joe Darke was the serial killer. He asked him to come in for questioning. We were desperate for evidence. That was when his final murder took place. He tried to murder Emma. Prosecutor Marshall was trying to save me from Darke. See, the first person who happened upon the scene of the crime, me. Now you tell us. Damon Gant and Neil, so that's what they mean by, like, it was the first murder that had evidence at it, so I guess she maybe tampered with the crime scene. Damon Gant and Neil Marshall were the ones questioning Darke that day. The investigation was in its final stages and Darke must have suddenly panicked. So he waited until Gant and Marshall let their guards down, then fled the room. From there, he ran straight to the office shared by Deputy Chief Gant and myself. That's where he found me. So you were the first person to run to the scene, Lana. It appears so. I was filing some papers while Gant and Marshall were questioning Darke. When I returned to my office, I saw 3 bodies on the floor and smelled blood. 3 bodies? Prosecutor Marshall, the victim Emma, who had passed out, and the suspect, Joe Darke. During the struggle, it seems Mr. Marshall struck a final blow before he died. Joe Darke had incurred a minor concussion and lay unconscious. What did you do? To be honest, I panicked. I picked up Emma, carried her out of the room, and just held her. Can't blame her after all her sister must have gone through. After that, I placed Darke under immediate arrest. Let me get this straight. You were all involved in the SL9 incident? That's right, quite a coincidence, I don't buy it. What are you saying? There's no way everyone involved in this trial was also involved in that incident. Just by chance. That'd be ridiculous. That's like some video game story or something. But that case was solved 2 years ago. At least one person went to extremes because they didn't believe it was truly solved. Mr. Marshall, yes, his actions came as a surprise to me as well. Ever since his brother died, he changed completely. Guess he wasn't convinced with the ruling against Joe Darke? Life doesn't end with the closing of a case. Everyone has to live the rest of their lives with their memories. That case just might not be over yet. Emma was assaulted by Darke at the police department, right? Yes, in the office that Damon Gant and I shared. The office that Mr. Gant now occupies by himself, the Chief's office. Maybe we should have a look at the Chief's office, the site of the final SL9 murder. Asking for a friend, how the hell do I get there? I guess it's in the... Well, I guess criminal affairs, actually? No one's here today, not even Miss Starr. Everyone's probably busy looking into what exactly went down in the evidence room. That must be where the detectives are. We proved in court today that on the day of the crime, no one was murdered in the evidence room at 5:15. Yeah, I thought we were finally making some headway into our case. But instead, it looks like we just ended up making Lana look even more guilty. Can't hang in there, Lana. Gotta find all the answers by tomorrow. We didn't prove the murder happened at, what, 4 o'clock? What does it say? 4:20? Any edgy boys here? Nope. Maybe he's being questioned by an inquiry committee? He took a real beating in court today. Yeah, with Lana admitting to falsifying evidence 2 years ago. I guess we'll just have to come back later. It's not really edgy boy's fault. Howdy, Bambina. Oh, Mr. Marshall. I never thought things turned out this way when I woke up this morning. Okay, Sarah, you never know where life will lead you, eh, Bambina? I should have known my luck had run out when old Billy dried up this morning. Billy? Must be his pet cactus. Say, where are you headed? Just over to the prosecutor's office for a little interrogation. It's a voluntary appearance, but we all know I won't be coming back. Sorry, but you can't go into the evidence room today, partner. Mr. Marshall, why did you do it? Why did prospectors head west? If there ever was a case I needed to know the truth about, it was that one. Before you turn yourself in, Mr. Marshall, would you mind telling us exactly what happened? Looks like I won't be getting a steak lunch today. Something was fishy about the trial from the beginning. It wasn't just me either. All the detectives thought so. What do you mean fishy? Some of the facts reported were inconsistent with the evidence we found. For example, the murder weapon. Murder weapon? You mean the switchblade knife with a broken tip? That was Joe Darke's alright, but in the initial autopsy report a question was raised. A question? The blade of the knife was not a perfect match with the wound the victim sustained. What does that mean? It means there was a good chance the knife was not the murder weapon. However, in the report that was finally submitted, that possibility had been erased. Could the facts have been concealed with the forged evidence? Happens all the time, man. Happens all the time, actually. That case left behind scars on all of us. Scars that the SL9 incident left behind? Tell me about them scars. There was something going on behind the scenes in that case. We all knew that later. Every detective involved in that investigation, save one, was taken care of. Miss Starr was fired and I was demoted and boxed away in a tiny room. What about Detective Goodman? If they did something to him too, the commissioners would get suspicious. They were careful enough not to be too obvious. They? Who are we talking about? Don't get upset, Bambina. I mean Damon Gant and Lana Skye. The investigation lead, Damon Gant, and his second-in-command, Lana Skye. There wasn't a person on the force who hadn't heard of that duo. The case was the biggest step in both of their careers. After the case ended, Lana transferred to the prosecutor's office, right? Yep. Damon Gant, the new chief of police, arranged for that to happen. She's never been the same since she left. Everyone who knew her said so. Chief Prosecutor Skye was a totally different person when she was a detective. Now that he mentions it, Emma said something like that too. Tell me, what happened to my sister? Sorry, Bambina, but her secret is too well guarded. I never found out. Lana's secret. It all started 2 years ago. I got the looks, but he got the brains. He was one of the best prosecutors around. Now, when you say you got the looks, what do you mean by that? I just made detective when it went down. It was our first case together. You may not be on the stand, but you can't just go lying willy-nilly like that. How old was he, your brother? He was 27 at the time. He was awarded the highest honor that very day. The highest honor? You mean the King of Prosecutors? I knew it. What are you looking at me like that for? That's an honor for a prosecutor. Mr. Marshall must have really been close with his brother. The day the SL9 incident took place, that wasn't the same day as... That's right, it was the day of the evidence transferal. Interesting. It was drizzling that morning and by nightfall there was thunder. Can't believe 2 years have gone by already. Tried to steal the evidence so the case wouldn't die. Apparently someone tried to stop you. Detective Goodman was murdered. The evidence locker was empty. So there you have it. That's my story. Did you enjoy it, partner? It was certainly enlightening. There's one thing for sure I found out in court today. That boy Edgeworth isn't my enemy. He was the one who used falsified evidence to get a guilty verdict, but someone else is the one who gave him that evidence and planned everything. That someone is Damon Gant. Don't believe me? Well, I don't blame you. I won't even be a patrolman after today. Too bad. Won't be around to work with you. You become a real scientific investigator. Adios, Bambina. Oh. How's it going, Blue Badgie? You didn't have to show me anything. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's dancing. Speaking of dancing, the whole police department has been dancing about like crazy since the other day. I think his battery's out. Just can't feel like something gonna happen. What am I doing? Yeah, criminal affairs. The place is always pretty empty, but today it's deserted. That must mean everyone's busy solving crimes. Oh, if you're looking for the others, they're all in the conference room. Thanks? Wow, he actually talked to us. With the chief prosecutor saying what she did and the decision about what to do about Mr. Edgeworth, not to mention our statement to the media in tomorrow's trial, there's more chaos going on than Thanksgiving and Christmas put together. I think festive is the word usually used for those. Sir, we'd like to have a look around the Chief Gant's office. Just use the connecting hallway to the other building and take the elevators to the top floor. Really? You mean it's okay for us to go in there? I mean, we aren't police officers or anything. Hey, you're right. You can't go in there. It's off limits. Now I see where Detective Gumshoe gets his unique charm. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's head to the chief's office. He just said to not to, though. I mean, come on, man. How could you, like, walk into this dude's office and not be like, oh, yeah, he's a serial killer? I mean, granted, we don't necessarily know that he's the... I still liked the idea that he was the serial killer and Joe Darke was just some, like, patsy that got planted onto him. Which, I mean, theoretically could still happen. They don't seem to really be going in that direction at all, though. Whoa, where am I? Chief's office, silly. At least that's what it said on the door. Check out that pipe organ. That's real, isn't it? Hey, I used to take organ lessons in kindergarten. What? What kind of fucking... What kind of kindergarten did you go to? They wouldn't even let us have like a triangle. That was too much of the budget. I thought I was I was reading that? I don't know what's doing that. It's like is my controller messed up? It just like keeps skipping text by itself. I can never remember where C was. Hmm? Oh, it's you two! Chief Gant. He put that paper where he was reading in his desk. Ah, so Righto, have you been swimming lately? No, I haven't. I've been kind of busy lately. I can appreciate that. I've had my hands full too with Mr. Marshall's misconduct and Lana's provocative statement. Provocative statement? Oh, you mean about the forged evidence? 2 years have passed since that incident. My, how time flies. See that big picture on the wall over there? Okay, you used to have a sword? So the sword's gone, but the shield actually was broken on it. But it was different. But this is Mr. Marshall's brother, Prosecutor Neil Marshall. We took us to commemorate our work together. Something's not right with this picture. I can't quite seem to put my finger on it, though. Who knows? So, how's it going? Anyway, I'd like to reminisce all day, but there are matters that need my attention. I'm going to lock up here, so let's go out together. But this office, it was a crime scene 2 years ago, wasn't it? Oh, that case has long since been over. There's no need to investigate it anymore. All the same, we'd still like to have a look. Perhaps you didn't hear me. I said, there's no need to investigate it anymore. Now, hurry up and get out. I have a meeting to attend. Looks like we aren't welcome. It seems that case isn't over just yet. What do you mean? Chief Gant denied our request to search the crime scene. That means there must be a reason he doesn't want us looking around in there. You mean like a clue? Gotta be a way we can get inside the chief's office. Lana, do you got like a grappling hook? A scientific grappling hook? Edgeworth. You got the deets for us? No? Okay. Secret entrance? Attorneys and prosecutors have no business showing. Shut up. Lana. Lana! Here, see this? Ah, I've noticed the defense attorneys have a tendency to show people things. Where else can we go? I guess we can go back in here. Gumshoe? Anybody? There we are. Hey, pal! Detective Gumshoe, aren't you supposed to be in a meeting? I'm, just taking a breather. You know, my feet hurt. From sitting so long? Actually, from serving everyone coffee. Sounds like Detective Gumshoe's still out of the loop. Say, have any of you seen Edgeworth? Edgeworth? No. Why? Do you ask? He's under fire from both the police department and the prosecutor's office. It's almost like the battles between you two in court. Like when you say objection, and he says objection, and then you say objection, and then play your boombox. Man, that shit's cool. That sounds serious. Is it because of what my sister said? That's basically what it boils down to. I falsified evidence 2 years ago. Now, Mr. Edgeworth has the whole world after his blood. Yikes. Well, maybe he should just quit and become a defense attorney, and we can be best friends and open the Wright and Edgy tag team duo. But why would Edgeworth be blamed? It's not like he knew the evidence was forged. Lana Skye is the guilty party here, isn't she? Well, it's a lot easier to blame the subordinates than the actual people on the higher up level, so he's just going to take the fall for it. Regardless, the prosecutor is responsible for the evidence they present in court. Not only that, as you know, there's been a lot of rumors going around about Mr. Edgeworth. His amazing talent as a prosecutor kept him safe from those who don't like him. But now with this, are there really so many people who hate him? In our world, only those with talent rise to the top. Mr. Edgeworth not only has that, well, talent and, you know, money, but he's young. There's no better recipe I know of for making enemies. Hey, Dick, keep up the good work. Yes, sir. Let's go out for lunch again sometime. My treat. Yes, sir. You gotta take me back to that joint, okay, Dick? Yes, sir. Quit calling me that, damn it. It seems you don't have any problem with enemies. Yeah, well, I'm careful not to stick out. Anyway, I'm a bit worried about him. Under all this pressure, I'm afraid Mr. Edgeworth just might crack. Actually, I took a look at the file earlier while the coffee was brewing. He seemed genuinely concerned for Edgeworth. Well, did you find out anything? The only evidence Darke left behind was during his final attack. Final attack? You mean when he killed Prosecutor Marshall, who was trying to protect some girl? Seems Detective Gumshoe never realized Emma was the girl. That's when he left the most incriminating evidence at all. He wrote out on a letter, Joe Darke did it 100%, totally me murder, me like kill lot fun. Well, what was it? Oh, let's see. I think it had something to do with the murder weapon? Oh, I forgot. Look, it's written somewhere in here, okay? Powers of recollection never fail to impress. Maybe we should show him the murder weapon. It might jog his memory. Okay. What about this murder weapon? Oh, we have to present it, right? It's not a trial. Joe Darke was 42 at the time of the crime. He was just a run-of-the-mill businessman. A businessman? What made him take to serial killing? One day on his way home from work, he hit someone with his car. With his car? So, it was an accident? An accident, yes, but it transformed him into an animal. An animal? He killed a man that witnessed the accident, then he killed a lady who saw the second crime. A kid, I'm quit advancing. A kid walked by then, and a jogger came up to the scene and was killed as well. Finally, he turned himself in. Wait, what? I don't know why, like, I need to, like, I wish I could have had I wish there was a log. Because that dialogue was so absurd, I would like to revisit it. Seems he was a pretty careless animal. Of course, this was all conjecture. There wasn't a single shred of evidence. So he turned himself in? Yeah, but in the middle of his questioning, he fled and murdered his final victim. Prosecutor Marshall. That crime was witnessed by someone too, but luckily Darke was arrested on the spot. It's a good thing that last witness wasn't killed. That last witness. AKA Emma. Well, about this. Hey, is that... Got a tag attached to it with the label SL9 incident on it. I believe this would be the broken murder weapon you were speaking of? What are you doing? Oh, is the murder weapon the pot? It's the pot, dude. Ever since that case was closed, that knife's been locked away in a locker. The day Detective Goodman was murdered, this suddenly disappeared from the locker. It was found in Mr. Edgeworth's car muffler. That's it! Now I remember what that criminating piece of evidence was. When you showed me that knife, it all came back to me. Well, what is it, Detective? Quick, before you forget again. Also, what about this pot? About that jar, I think I've seen it somewhere before. Somewhere? Or maybe it's one of those memories people have from previous lives. This must be the most uninformative detective I've ever met. Something about it makes you feel uneasy. Like I'm in the chief's office and he's yelling at me. Okay, so I guess maybe it's from his office? Where could I have seen that before? Interesting. I mean, they said that Darke was knocked unconscious. Maybe, like, the pot was used to hit him and that knocked him unconscious? This knife, it was Joe Darke's, wasn't it? That's right. We traced it back to the store he bought it at, plus it had fingerprints on it too. But no one actually witnessed him using it to murder anyone, right? That's where his luck ran out. When you take a good look at that knife, you'll see it's broken. You don't have to take a good look to notice that. Yeah, well, anyway, take a guess where the broken tip of the knife was found. That's what did him in. Where was it? Victim Neil Marshall was carrying it. Inside his own body. It was found deep inside the stab wound. Did it match Darke's knife? You bet, down to the last fiber. That's pretty conclusive. Stabbed in the back, died from a punctured heart and lung. Okay. Now, stabbed in the back must be important, because that seems like kind of a weird thing to mention. Well, there you have it in a nutshell. That's all I know. Can I ask you one more thing? What is it? If it's money you need, you should ask Chief Gant. He's giving out $50 to anybody who asks. I've already asked 8 times today. It's not money, but it does concern the chief. His office is a crime scene, right? Where Prosecutor Neil Marshall was murdered. Chief's out now and his office is locked. But we'd like to have a look around if that's okay. Well, any detective's ID can unlock the door. What? Really? But if I let a civilian in there, I'd be charged with breach of trust. Breach of trust? That's one of them made-up phony baloney laws. Simply put, I'd be canned. Oh. Sorry, pal. I don't plan on getting fired because of you. How about this ID card? That was Detective Goodman. That won't work either. The data was deleted the day he died. Oh. Well, in other words, Gumshoe is our only chance of getting into that office. I wonder if there's something that we could show him that would make him change his mind. Okay. God, isn't this thing so beautiful? What are you talking about? He was guarding the bloodstain on that evidence locker with his life. That's more than you can say about most officers nowadays. Would have saved us a lot of trouble if you hadn't guarded it so well. I have to admit he's right though. Thanks to the Blue Badger, we were able to prove another possibility today. The possibility that another murder took place prior to 5:15. Oh, it's got the pot in it, dude. There's the pot. Okay. So, I mean, granted, I kind of already figured out that the jar was in the guy's room, but I mean, they kind of like spell it out for you, but study up on the files. There's nothing wrong with Mr. Edgeworth's presentation. I think people are accusing him of injustice. Yeah, I ain't buying it, pal. You're looking into the case for Mr. Edgeworth? Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty big deal when it was going on, you know, after all. A serial killer was on the loose, but Lana was pretty clear in her confession. She forged evidence in order to prove Joe Darke guilty. Okay, but like, let me in, dude. That's it. That's the King of Prosecutors Award. Congratulations. Why is it broken? There's a reason. I'll tell you later. Apparently he's forgotten. You ever seen a real-life attorney's badge? Detective, here's my attorney's badge. Here's me every time we meet, pal. That's the photo that Miss Starr took. Anything you can tell us about it? That's Miss Starr is quite the lady. Why, I remember it was winter. I was 16. She was the only one who ever got me to talk about what happened. 16? That's how old I am now. Wonder what happened. Wonder if Detective Gumshoe wore a trench coat in high school, too. Well, what does he mean by that? Like, the only one that got him to talk about what happened. I guess something happened to old Gumshoe in the past? Maybe that's like a reference to the next games. It's something that's revealed in there. What could we show him? Maybe, I mean, granted, it could be something we don't have yet. Let me go see how Edgeworth is doing. I wonder if Edgeworth is back yet. There he is! It looks like he's writing something. What are you doing here? I was just practicing my sexy face. We'll explain to Edgeworth what we're doing here in the next video. I'm Extra Cheesy 87. Stay tuned for the next part. And bye, guys.